Imagine for a moment you are a young servant in ancient Rome, around 48 AD. It's late at night, and you are hidden in a dark corner of the imperial palace. The air is thick with the scent of oil lamps and the faint, musty smell of the Tiber River. You hear the clatter of horse hooves on cobblestones outside. You press your back against the cool marble wall, your rough tunic catching on the stone. Beyond a silk curtain, you can hear the sounds of a grand party, laughter, gasps, the clinking of goblets. It's a world you're not meant to be a part of, but you are close enough to overhear secrets. Suddenly, you see Empress Valeria Messalina herself, slipping out from the palace, her face hidden by a hooded cloak. Her eyes, though, are bright with a dangerous fire, a recklessness that could bring down an empire. A knot of fear tightens in your stomach. One wrong move, one secret overheard by the wrong person, and the Praetorian Guard will find you before the sun rises. This is a story of survival and suffering, a look into the hidden lives of those at the center of the Roman Empire's power. It's not just a dry recounting of history from dusty scrolls, but a tale full of the grit of the streets, the perfume of grand villas, and the constant dread of those who lived at the edges of this dazzling and dangerous world. We will explore the life of Valeria Messalina, Empress of Rome, whose name became a symbol of excess, and also the silent horrors endured by the young male concubines, the puri delicati, whose suffering was a common part of daily life. The details of these stories are pieced together from historical accounts by Tacitus, Suetonius, Cassius Dio, Juvenal, and Pliny the Elder. We are not here to judge, but to witness a world where power was a sharp and unforgiving blade. Valeria Messalina was born around 20 AD into a family that was both ambitious and deeply connected to Rome's elite. Her father, Marcus Valerius Messalabarbatus, was a consul from a long line of distinguished Romans. Her mother, Domitia Lepida the Younger, was from an equally powerful family, sister to the father of the future Emperor Nero, and a cousin of the unstable Emperor Caligula. Messalina's childhood would have been spent in luxury, surrounded by mosaics, fountains, and beautiful gardens. She would have heard hushed conversations about the politics of marriage and alliances, learning early on that her world was built on more than just wealth. By 38 AD, when she was around 18, Messalina was married to Claudius, a man who was almost 50 and mocked by the Roman elite for his physical frailties, a limp, a stammer, and a drooping mouth. Claudius had survived the dangerous political games of the Julio-Claudian dynasty by staying out of the spotlight and dedicating himself to scholarship. Their marriage was a political arrangement, not one of love, but it quickly produced two children, Claudia Octavia, born in 39 or 40 AD, and Tiberius Claudius Germanicus, later known as Britannicus, born in 41 AD. In that same year, the Roman world was thrown into chaos when Emperor Caligula was assassinated in a palace corridor. The Praetorian Guard found Claudius cowering behind a curtain in terror, and to avoid further violence, declared him emperor. At just 21 years old, Messalina became empress. The imperial palace was a place of stark contrasts. Its marble halls gleamed, yet the air was thick with whispers of betrayal. Messalina moved through this world with a clever and calculating grace. She quickly learned to navigate the court, aligning herself with Claudius's powerful freedmen like Narcissus and Pallas, who became her tools for securing her own power. The historian Tacitus describes her as a woman of great ambition, with a mind as sharp as a dagger. Her influence was so great that she once used a fabricated tale of treason to convince Claudius to execute a senator, Gaius Junius Silanus, who had rejected her advances. Claudius, roused from his sleep by whispers from his freedmen, ordered the man's execution without a trial. Messalina's power also reached into the private lives of others. The historian Suetonius tells of her pursuit of the Greek actor Nestor, whom she summoned to her private chambers and threatened with exile or worse if he did not comply with her demands. She also showed intense jealousy, leading her to orchestrate the exile of Julia Livilla, Caligula's beautiful sister, to a remote island where she was left to starve. The most famous stories about Messalina concern her appetites, although historians believe these were likely exaggerated by her enemies. The satirist Juvenal wrote that she would sneak out of the palace at night, disguised as a common prostitute, and work in a brothel in the city's underbelly. The historian Pliny the Elder even wrote of a legendary contest in 48 AD, where Messalina allegedly challenged a famous prostitute to a contest of endurance, claiming victory with 25 different lovers in one day and night. Despite these scandals, Messalina was also a protective mother who tried to shield her children from the court's dangers. When Claudius left Rome for a military campaign in Britain in 43 AD, he left Messalina in charge. It was during his absence that her life began to unravel. In 48 AD, she became involved with Gaius Silius, a senator whose ambition matched her own. While Claudius was away, they staged a mock wedding, a wild and defiant celebration. When Claudius's freedman Narcissus learned of this, he rode to warn the emperor. Claudius returned to Rome, his face a mask of betrayal. The Praetorian Guard stormed Silius's home and found imperial treasures, gifts from Messalina, scattered everywhere. Messalina fled to the gardens of Lucullus. Her mother, Domitia Lepida, gave her a dagger and urged her to take her own life. According to Tacitus, Messalina hesitated, the blade trembling in her hand. Before she could act, a tribune's sword struck her down. Later, at dinner, Claudius was told of her death and asked about her with a voice so empty it seemed as if grief had hollowed him out. The Senate ordered her name to be erased from history, her statues toppled, and her name chiseled from public monuments. Now let's turn our attention to a darker side of Roman life, woven into the city's very stones. The Puri Delicati were boys whose youth and beauty were a commodity in a world where power demanded submission. They were often as young as 10, taken from slave markets in Rome, Alexandria, or newly conquered territories like Gaul or Judea. Their beauty was a currency traded among the elite. The historian Suetonius describes how Emperor Tiberius, on the island of Capri in 27 AD, kept groups of these boys, fair-haired Germans and dark-eyed Syrians, in his villa. Their skin was oiled to gleam under torchlight as they performed for the emperor in grottos. Castration was a common, brutal practice, a violation followed by weeks of pain and confinement. The boys lived in constant fear, knowing that any act of defiance meant a beating or a life of hard labor in the mines. Even though Roman law offered them no protection, slaves were considered property. Writers like Seneca lamented their plight. A master's favor might bring gifts, but rejection could mean being sold to a brothel. Emperor Nero's reign pushed this to a grotesque extreme. In 67 AD, he became obsessed with a boy named Sporus who looked like his deceased wife. According to Suetonius, Nero had the boy castrated and then paraded him through Rome, dressed as an empress. Their public wedding was a spectacle of excess. Sporus endured the humiliation until Nero's fall, after which he was passed from one master to another, his life ending in suicide, a final act of defiance against his shame. Even as some emperors tried to make laws against the practice, the trade of these boys persisted in the shadows. The boys' silence was a scream that no one heard. From the baths of Ostia to the estates of Antioch, this was a routine part of daily life. Slaves from Claudius's British campaigns, their hair matted with mud, were sold in markets where buyers prodded their flesh like livestock. They were then trained to suppress their flinches, knowing that rebellion would result in a brutal lashing. The graffiti found in the ruins of Pompeii, names, pleas, and curses scratched into walls, offer us a glimpse into their despair. Messalina's story and the suffering of the Puri Delicati are two different threads in the complex tapestry of Roman life, a city of both marble and blood, where desire fueled both glory and ruin. Her legendary contest of endurance, whether true or not, mirrors the endless suffering of these boys. Both were trapped in a world that valued power over humanity. The fires of our story are now fading, their glow as faint as the lives erased by history's march. Yet their whispers linger in the ash, reminding us of the true cost of an empire, a price paid in flesh and fear beneath the laurels and the cheers.